I found Tommy's diary hidden under his mattress this morning, and the last entry stopped my heart. He knows I'm going to tell everything. My hands shook, holding the small, leather-bound book. Tommy, my only grandson, vanished 3 days ago. The sheriff, Ben, our so-called family friend, headed the search himself. Now I read how Ben raped him for years, detailed in Tommy's cramped handwriting. I had to act before Ben covered his tracks completely. My husband, rest his soul, taught me to track and hunt. Those skills wouldn't go to waste. I needed proof, something undeniable to bring Ben down. If I failed, Tommy might never be found, or worse. I hid the diary in my sewing box, my mind racing, just then. A knock echoed through the house. Peering through the window, I saw Ben's patrol car in the driveway. He never visited alone. My pulse hammered as I tucked the diary deeper into the box. Ben called out, "Martha, you home? I've got an update on Tommy." His voice was too calm, too friendly. I forced myself to breathe, to appear normal. Opening the door, I pasted on a smile. Ben stood there, his uniform crisp, eyes scanning the room behind me. "We found his backpack near the old quarry," he said, watching my reaction closely. "But no sign of him yet." I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Thank you, Ben. Let me know if there's anything." He lingered, his gaze drifting toward Tommy's room. "Mind if I use your bathroom? Long day?" My skin crawled. This wasn't a social call. He was snooping. As he walked down the hall, I noticed mud on his boots, fresh, dark soil, not from the quarry area. It struck me that he'd been somewhere else recently, somewhere he shouldn't have been. I needed to check that quarry myself, but first, I had to get him out. Ben emerged, smiling tightly. "Keep the faith, Martha." He left, and I locked the door, my hands trembling not from fear, but rage. I rushed to the window, watching his taillights disappear. Then I saw it. A single muddy footprint leading not to the door, but toward the side of the house where Tommy's window was. He'd been here before, searching. My blood ran cold. I had to move now, before he realized I knew. I drove to the old quarry under the cover of dusk, my husband's hunting rifle tucked in the trunk. Tommy's diary lay on the passenger seat, a silent accuser. Ben's update felt like a trap. I had to see the scene myself. I had to find evidence linking Ben to Tommy's disappearance, something the official search missed. If I failed, Ben would bury the truth forever, and I might join Tommy in oblivion. My safety was at risk. Being caught out here alone could be fatal. I felt Ben's presence constantly. As sheriff, he controlled the story and had people watching. The quarry loomed ahead, desolate and eerie. I parked behind a thicket and moved on foot, using the tracking skills my husband drilled into me. The ground was churned up from earlier searches, but I focused on anomalies. Near the edge, I spotted a glint, a broken watch, Tommy's birthday gift from me. My heart clenched. As I bent to pick it up, a twig snapped behind me. I froze, flattening against a rock. Ben's voice carried on the wind, talking on his radio. "Yeah, I'm checking the perimeter." "No, she's at home, probably knitting." He laughed, the sound grating. He was here, confirming my fears. This sudden change forced me into hiding, and I had to rethink my plan. I couldn't confront him yet. I needed more. Crouching low, I noticed a drag mark leading away from the quarry, toward the woods, a path the searchers had ignored. I realized this wasn't where Tommy was taken, it was a diversion. Ben was creating a false trail. I slipped back to my car, clutching the watch. As I turned the key, headlights flared in my rearview mirror. Another vehicle pulled in, blocking my exit. Ben stepped out, flashlight beams sweeping toward me. I ducked, engine idling. He was here, and he knew I wasn't home. I held my breath, counting the seconds as Ben's footsteps crunched on gravel. His flashlight beam danced over my car's interior, but I stayed low, hidden by the seats. My focus shifted to escaping this confrontation and finding where Ben was hiding something. If he caught me now, he could silence me for good, making me out to be a confused old woman. The threat from Ben grew. He had the power to arrest or worse, and he was right there. He knocked on my window, his voice firm. "Martha, that you? What are you doing out here?" I remained silent, praying he'd leave. After a moment, he muttered into his radio, "False alarm, probably kids." He walked back to his vehicle and I heard him drive off. I waited, heart pounding, before starting the engine and pulling away. This break gave me a chance. He hadn't seen me clearly. Driving home, I replayed the drag mark in my mind. It led deeper into the woods, toward an abandoned hunting cabin my husband and I used years ago. Ben knew about it. He'd joined us there once. It dawned on me that the cabin was on private land, forgotten by most, perfect for hiding secrets. I parked a mile from home and approached on foot, avoiding main roads. My house was dark, but as I neared, I saw a figure moving inside through the window. Ben, searching my home again. He was getting reckless, sure I was powerless. I circled to the back, finding the spare key still under the flower pot. Slipping inside, I heard him upstairs in Tommy's room. I needed to act fast. In the kitchen, I grabbed a knife from the drawer, my hands steady for the first time. Then I saw it. On the counter, Ben had left his sheriff's hat, as if marking territory. But tucked under the brim was a small, folded map with a circled area, the cabin. He'd dropped it, unaware. I pocketed it, my resolve hardening. As I turned, the floor creaked. Ben's voice came from the hallway. "Martha, we need to talk." He was right behind me, and the knife felt heavy in my hand. I slid the knife into my apron pocket as Ben entered the kitchen, his expression unreadable. "You scared me, Ben," I said, keeping my voice even. His eyes darted around, lingering on the counter where his hat had been. I needed to act clueless, make him think I was just a grieving grandmother, while I figured out how to get to the cabin. If he suspected I had the map, he might turn violent. Ben used psychological tactics. He leveraged his authority to scare me, hinting he could have me committed or arrested. "I came back to check on you," he said, leaning against the doorway. "You seemed upset earlier." I forced a smile. "Just worried about Tommy. Any new leads?" He shook his head, but his gaze was too sharp. "We're doing all we can. But Martha, if you know something, you should tell me." His sudden return forced me to lie to him outright. I poured 2 glasses of water, hands steady. "I don't know anything, Ben. I just want him home." As I handed him a glass, our fingers brushed, and I felt the cold metal of his ring. He studied me, then sighed. "I'll keep you posted." He left, and I watched from the window until his car was gone. I noticed something else. His visit wasn't just about suspicion. He'd planted a listening device on the kitchen phone, a tiny black box I saw while cleaning. He was monitoring me. I left it in place, not to alert him. Upstairs, I unfolded the map. The cabin was marked with a red X, and scribbled notes mentioned midnight deliveries. My husband taught me to read land like a book. I could get there before dawn. Packing a bag with supplies, I included the rifle and diary. As I zipped it shut, a noise came from downstairs, a faint click like a door opening. I crept to the top of the stairs, peering down. The front door was ajar, swinging gently in the wind. but I'd locked it after Ben left. Someone else was here. I edged down the stairs, the rifle gripped tight in my hands. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I had to figure out who the intruder was and deal with them without Ben hearing, since he might be listening. A wrong move could expose me or lead to an attack, stopping my search before it really started. Ben's presence was heavy. With his device, he could hear anything, and his resources made him powerful. In the living room, nothing seemed out of place. Then, a shadow moved in the hallway, a tall figure slipping out the back door. I followed, stepping into the cool night air. The backyard was empty, but a set of fresh footprints led toward the woods. This new development shifted my focus. It wasn't Ben, but someone else was in on it. Using my tracking skills, I followed the trail, moving quietly. The prints were large, likely a man's, and they headed toward the same woods where the cabin lay. Had Ben sent an accomplice? Deeper in, I found a dropped cigarette butt, a brand Ben smoked. It became clear this wasn't random. It was a planned move to frighten or stop me. I pressed on, the map burning a hole in my pocket. Near the tree line, I spotted a figure crouched, examining the ground. It was Jake, Ben's deputy, a young man I'd known since he was a boy. He looked up, startled as I approached. "Mrs. Martha? What are you doing out here?" he asked, his voice nervous. I kept the rifle lowered but visible, looking for my grandson. "You?" He stood, dusting off his uniform. "Ben sent me to check for clues. He said you might be unstable." His words stung, but I saw doubt in his eyes. "Jake, do you really believe that?" He hesitated, then glanced toward the cabin's direction. "I found something you should see." He led me to a hidden cache under a rock, a bundle of Tommy's clothes, stained and torn. My breath caught. Jake whispered, "Ben's not who you think, Martha. But if he finds out I helped you—" He trailed off, eyes wide with fear. Just then, a crackle came from his radio. Ben's voice. "Jake, report in. Now." Jake paled, backing away. "I have to go." He vanished into the darkness, leaving me with the clothes and a sinking realization. I had an ally. But he was terrified, and Ben was closing in. I clutched Tommy's stained clothes to my chest, the fabric rough against my skin. Jake's fear was palpable, and his warning echoed in my mind. Ben wasn't who I thought. I knew I had to reach the abandoned cabin before Ben realized I had the map and these clothes. If I failed, Ben could destroy any evidence there, and Tommy might be lost forever. I was risking my safety. Alone in these woods, I was an easy target. The threat from Ben intensified. With his listening device at home and Jake possibly reporting back, I had to move fast. The night air grew colder, and I started toward the cabin, using the map's markings. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes made me freeze. A deer bolted out, startling me. The noise made me hide, and I lost valuable minutes. As I waited, I noticed something odd. The clothes had a peculiar smell, like gasoline, and a small folded paper tucked in a pocket. Unfolding it, I saw Tommy's handwriting. "Cabin basement, trap door." My heart raced. He'd left a clue. I stuffed everything back and pressed on, the rifle heavy in my hand. Nearing the cabin, I saw a dim light flickering in a window. Someone was inside. I crouched lower, my breath fogging in the air. Then, a shadow passed by the light, tall and familiar. Ben's silhouette. He was already here, and he wasn't alone. I edged closer, peering through a crack in the wall. Inside, Ben was talking to another man, their voices muffled. I caught a few words. "Clean up" and "midnight." My hands trembled. I had to get in without being seen. As I circled to the back, a floorboard creaked under my weight. The voices inside stopped abruptly. Ben called out, "Who's there?" I held my breath, flattening against the wall. Footsteps approached the door, and I knew I was seconds from being discovered. I slipped into the shadows behind the cabin, my heart hammering against my ribs. Ben's voice grew louder as he stepped outside, flashlight beams sweeping the area. Now I needed to find that basement trapdoor without alerting him. If I were caught, Ben would have every excuse to silence me, claiming I was trespassing or unstable. The consequences were dire. I'd lose any chance to save Tommy. Ben's control over the situation was absolute. He had backup and authority on his side. He muttered to the other man, "Probably an animal. Let's finish up." They went back inside, and I waited, counting to 100. Then I saw a loose board near the foundation that might be a way in. I pried it open, revealing a crawl space. It was dark and cramped, but I squeezed through, the smell of damp earth filling my nostrils. Inside, I found myself in a small storage area, and there it was, a trapdoor in the floor, just as Tommy's note said. My hands shook as I lifted it, revealing a steep ladder down. This was the breakthrough I needed. Climbing down, I landed in a cold, concrete-lined room. Using my phone's light, I scanned the space. It was empty, except for a cot and some chains bolted to the wall. My stomach churned. Tommy had been here. Then, I spotted a journal on the cot, similar to his diary. I grabbed it, flipping through pages filled with dates and Ben's name. A sudden realization hit me. This wasn't just about Tommy. Ben had other victims, their stories detailed here. As I tucked the journal into my bag, a noise came from above, the trap door creaking shut. I looked up to see Ben's face peering down, his expression cold. "Martha, you shouldn't have come here," he said, and the ladder was pulled up, trapping me in the darkness. I was trapped in the basement, the air thick with the scent of mold and despair. Ben's voice echoed from above. "Stay put, Martha. We'll talk when I'm done." My focus shifted to survival and escape, using whatever I had to get out and expose him. The risk was high. If I didn't break free, I might never see daylight again. Ben's threat was immense. He had me cornered and could dispose of me easily. I heard him moving around upstairs, talking to his accomplice about loading the truck. The distraction bought me a little time. I felt along the walls, remembering my husband's lessons on hidden exits in old cabins. My fingers brushed against a loose brick, and I pried it out, finding a small hollow behind it. Inside was a key, rusty but intact. It fit a lock on the far wall, revealing a narrow tunnel, likely used for hunting escapes. I crawled through, the space tight and dark, emerging into the woods behind the cabin. I was free, but Ben's truck was parked nearby, engine running. He hadn't seen me yet. I hid behind a tree, catching my breath. The journal in my bag felt like a bomb. It contained names and dates, implicating Ben in multiple crimes. Then, I saw Jake approaching the truck, his face pale. He spoke to Ben. "I couldn't find her, Ben. She's gone." Ben snarled. "She has evidence. Find her." I realized then that Jake was still helping me, but he was being forced. I needed to get to town and use this journal, but my car was miles away. As I plotted my next move, Ben glanced toward my hiding spot, his eyes narrowing. He started walking toward me, hand on his gun. I froze, knowing I had nowhere to run. Ben advanced, his footsteps crunching on leaves, and I pressed deeper into the shadows. I aimed to reach my car and drive to the state police, bypassing Ben's corruption. If I failed, he'd bury the journal and me with it. I was risking my life. I felt every one of my years weighing on me. Ben's authority was a weapon. He could shoot me and claim self-defense. He called out, "Martha, come out. We can talk about Tommy." I stayed silent, clutching the rifle. Suddenly, a car engine roared in the distance, drawing Ben's attention. Jake had driven off quickly, creating a diversion. This sudden distraction gave me a chance to slip away while Ben was distracted. I moved toward the road, keeping low. To my surprise, I found that Jake had left my car keys on a stump, as if to help me. I grabbed them and ran, my lungs burning. Reaching my car, I fumbled with the keys and started the engine. As I pulled onto the dirt road, I saw Ben in my rearview mirror, aiming his flashlight. He didn't follow immediately, probably thinking I was headed home. But I drove toward the highway, the journal safe in my bag. I needed to find a safe place to copy the evidence before confronting anyone. Then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't go home. Ben has it watched." It had to be Jake. My hands tightened on the wheel. I was alone on a dark road, with Ben possibly tracking me. Up ahead, a roadblock appeared, orange cones and a sheriff's vehicle. It wasn't Ben's, but another deputy. I slowed down, my mind racing. Was this a trap or a routine check? The deputy stepped out, waving me to stop. As I rolled down the window, he shone a light in my face. "Ma'am, we're looking for a missing person. Have you seen anything?" he asked. But his eyes lingered on my bag. I knew I couldn't trust him, not with Ben's influence. I forced a smile. "No, officer. Just heading to my sister's." He nodded, but as I drove off, I saw him on his radio, likely reporting to Ben. I had to act fast, but where could I go? Then I remembered an old friend's farm nearby, a place Ben wouldn't know about. I turned onto a side road, but headlights appeared behind me, following closely. It was Ben's truck, and he was gaining fast. I pushed the accelerator, the old car groaning as I sped down the winding road. Ben's headlights glared in my mirror, relentless. I needed to lose him and secure the journal at the farm, where I could make copies and call for help. If he caught me, the evidence would be destroyed, and I'd be another accident. I was putting everything on the line to bring him to justice. Ben's pursuit was aggressive. He used his siren briefly, trying to force me off the road. I swerved onto a gravel path leading to the farm, dust clouding behind me. The sudden change in terrain made Ben hesitate, giving me a lead. I skidded to a stop near the barn, grabbing my bag and rifle. Inside, the air was stale, but it felt safe. I barricaded the door with a hay bale, then used my phone to take photos of the journal pages, sending them to my email as backup. This was my insurance. I was shocked to see an entry in the journal about Ben bribing officials, including people I knew. He had a network, making exposure harder. As I worked, I heard Ben's truck pull up outside. He shouted, "Martha, I know you're in there. Come out, and we can deal with this." I didn't respond, instead looking for another way out. The barn had a rear exit, but it was blocked by equipment. I was trapped again, but I had the photos. Then, my phone vibrated. A call from Jake. I answered quietly. "Martha, I'm nearby. I can distract him, but you have to run now," he whispered. I heard engines outside. More vehicles were arriving. Peeking through a crack, I saw 2 other cars, Ben's allies. Jake's car sped into the yard, honking loudly, drawing their attention. Ben turned, yelling at Jake. This was my chance. I slipped out the back, climbing over a fence into the fields. As I ran, I glanced back and saw Ben and Jake arguing, but then Ben drew his gun on Jake. My blood ran cold. Jake was in danger because of me. I had to keep moving, But I couldn't leave him. I hid behind a tree, watching as Ben forced Jake to his knees. The situation had escalated, and I was the only one who could stop it. But I was unarmed, except for the rifle. I raised it, aiming at Ben, but my hands shook. Just then, headlights flooded the area, a state police car pulling in. Had my email reached someone? Ben lowered his gun, looking startled. The officers stepped out, and one called, "Sheriff Ben, we need to talk." Ben backed away, but he shot me a look of pure hatred. I stayed hidden, relief washing over me. But then I saw Jake being handcuffed too. What was happening? The officers approached the barn, and I realized they might not be here for Ben. One of them picked up my dropped journal, flipping through it. My hope shattered. What if they were in on it? I crept closer, listening. The lead officer said, "Ben, we got a tip about evidence here. Hand it over." Ben smiled coldly. "It's all hers. She's unstable." They were turning it on me. I had to act. But how? As I debated, one officer spotted me and shouted, "There she is!" I turned to run, but a net was thrown over me, trapping me. I struggled, but it was useless. Ben walked over, leaning close. "You should have stayed out of this, Martha," he whispered. Then, everything went black as something hit my head. The last thing I heard was Ben saying, "Take her to the station. We'll make it look like she cracked." I was captured, and the evidence was in their hands. I woke up with a throbbing headache on a cold cot in a dimly lit cell. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth, and my wrists were raw from restraints. Ben had me right where he wanted, locked up and discredited. I needed to assess my situation and find a way to contact someone outside who could help, using the emailed photos as leverage. If I failed, Ben would have me committed or worse, and Tommy's truth would die with me. I could lose my freedom, or even my life. Ben was putting overwhelming pressure on me. As sheriff, he controlled the narrative and had deputies loyal to him. The cell door creaked open, and a young deputy I didn't recognize brought in a tray of food. "Eat up, Ma'am. Sheriff says you need rest," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. This routine interaction shifted when I noticed his name tag was crooked, and he slipped a small note under the tray before leaving. My heart raced. Was this a trick or an ally? Unfolding the note, I saw messy handwriting. "Jake says check your phone. Backup sent." I fumbled for my phone in my pocket, but it was gone. Ben must have confiscated it. Then, I remembered I'd used a cloud storage app that auto-saved the photos. If I could access a computer, I might still expose him. Then I realized the note wasn't from Jake. It was signed Lena, a name I recalled from the journal, one of Ben's other victims. She was reaching out, meaning I wasn't alone. Hope surged, but it was short-lived. The door opened again, and Ben strode in, his expression smug. "Martha, you're being transferred to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. It's for your own good," he said, holding up a forged document. I struggled to sit up, my body aching. "You can't silence me, Ben. I have proof." He laughed coldly. "Proof of what? An old woman's delusions?" As he turned to leave, I spotted my phone on his belt clip. He had it, but he didn't know about the cloud. Just then, an alarm blared through the station. A fire drill, or something else. Ben cursed and rushed out, locking the cell behind him. In the chaos, I heard shouts and running footsteps. The ceiling light flickered, and I saw a shadow move outside the bars. Someone was coming for me, but I didn't know if it was rescue or another trap. The station descended into chaos with the blaring alarm, and I used the distraction to search my cell for anything useful. I had to retrieve my phone or find another way to access the evidence before Ben transferred me. If I didn't act now, I'd be locked away indefinitely, and Ben would erase all traces of his crimes. My sanity would be questioned publicly. Ben's pressure on me intensified. He had the authority to make me disappear legally. I felt along the cot and found a loose spring I could use as a tool. Suddenly, the cell door unlocked with a click, and Lena, the woman from the note, peeked in. "Quick, follow me," she whispered, her face pale but determined. This unexpected help forced me to trust a stranger. She led me through a back hallway, avoiding the main area where deputies were distracted. "Jake's in holding. Ben framed him too," she explained as we moved. I realized Lena had been hiding for years, gathering her own evidence against Ben. We reached a storage room with a computer terminal. "I work here part-time. I can access the system," she said, typing rapidly. Then something unexpected happened. She showed me security footage from the cabin night, proving Ben was there with Tommy. But as she pulled it up, the screen froze. Ben had remote access and was locking us out. "He knows we're here," Lena gasped. We heard footsteps approaching, heavy and fast. Ben's voice echoed down the hall. "Find them!" Lena shoved a USB drive into my hand. "It's all I have. Go!" She pushed me toward a vent cover she'd loosened earlier. I crawled inside, the space tight and dark, as the door burst open. I heard a struggle and Ben's angry shout. "Where is she?" Then, silence. I kept moving, the USB drive clutched in my hand. Exiting into an alley, I saw Ben's car parked nearby, engine running. He was waiting, but he hadn't seen me yet. I ducked behind a dumpster, catching my breath. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. He must have missed it when searching me. A text from an unknown number. "I have Tommy. Meet at the old mill in 1 hour. Come alone." My blood ran cold. Was this a trick from Ben, or real? I had to decide, but time was running out. I crouched in the alley, the USB drive feeling like a lifeline in my sweaty palm. The text about Tommy consumed me. I had to verify if it was real or a trap set by Ben. I needed to get to the old mill safely and use the evidence to save Tommy. But first, I had to ensure the USB files were secure. If I walked into a trap, I'd lose everything, and Ben could eliminate us both. I couldn't bear the thought of losing Tommy forever. Ben was relentless. He had resources everywhere, and that text could be his way of luring me out. I found a public library a few blocks away, its lights still on. Slipping inside, I used a computer terminal to check the USB. It contained videos and documents linking Ben to multiple abuses, including Tommy's case. I uploaded everything to a secure online storage, emailing the link to a trusted news reporter I knew from years ago. This was my insurance. As I worked, I noticed a man watching me from across the room, a deputy in plain clothes. He didn't approach, just observed. This unexpected event made me abort my plan and leave immediately. I exited through a back door, heart pounding. Then, when I checked my phone again, I saw a photo from the unknown number. Tommy, looking terrified but alive, tied to a chair in a dusty room. It was the old mill. I recognized the background. Hope and fear warred within me. I had to go, but I couldn't do it alone. I called Jake's number, but it went to voicemail. Leaving a cryptic message, I headed toward the mill on foot, avoiding main roads. Nearing the location, I saw Ben's truck parked discreetly behind trees. He was here, confirming my suspicions. I circled around, using the woods for cover. Through a broken window, I spotted Tommy inside, guarded by a large man I didn't recognize. Ben was talking to him, gesturing angrily. I raised my rifle, aiming for a clear shot, but my hands trembled. Just then, a hand clamped over my mouth from behind. I struggled, but a voice whispered, "Don't shoot, Martha. It's Jake. I got your message." I relaxed slightly, turning to see him, bruised but determined. "Ben has snipers posted. If you fire, they'll take you out," he said. My relief was short-lived as he added, "But I have a plan. Distract them, and I'll get Tommy." He pointed to a side entrance. As I nodded, a shot rang out, and Jake crumpled to the ground, blood spreading on his shirt. Ben stood in the doorway, smoke curling from his gun. "Nice try, Martha," he said, aiming at me next. I was exposed, with no cover, and Tommy was still inside. I dropped to the ground, crawling behind a tree as Ben fired again, the bullet splintering wood above my head. Jake lay motionless, and my heart ached with guilt. Now I had to survive this ambush and rescue Tommy, using the distraction to get inside the mill. If I failed, we'd both be killed, and Ben would cover it up as a shootout. We could lose our lives, and the truth would be buried. Ben was at his most dangerous. He had armed men, and no hesitation to kill. I peeked out and saw Ben advancing, his gun steady. Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. Real police cars, not Ben's. They were responding to my email or something else. Ben hesitated, looking toward the sound. This interruption gave me a chance to act. I bolted for the side entrance Jake had pointed to, dodging gunfire. Inside the mill, it was dark and dusty, with Tommy tied to a chair in the center. The guard was gone, probably dealing with the outside chaos. I rushed to Tommy, cutting his bonds with a knife from my pocket. "Grandma?" he whispered, his voice weak but alive. I hugged him tightly, tears in my eyes. "We have to go now." But as I helped him up, the door slammed shut and Ben stood there blocking our exit. "It's over, Martha. Drop the weapon," he commanded, his eyes cold. I pushed Tommy behind me, raising my rifle. "It's over for you, Ben. The evidence is out." He laughed. "You think that matters? I own this town." Then Tommy spoke up. "He's not alone, Grandma. There are others. He has records in a safe here." I remembered the journal mentions of a safe with more proof. Ben's expression shifted to panic. "Shut up, kid," he snarled, stepping closer. Just then, the main doors burst open and state police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. "Sheriff Ben, you're under arrest," one shouted. Ben swung his gun toward them, and shots were fired. I shielded Tommy, hitting the floor. When the noise stopped, Ben was on the ground, wounded but alive. An officer helped us up, and I thought we were safe. But as they cuffed Ben, he glared at me and muttered, "This isn't finished." Then, one officer approached me, not with relief, but suspicion. "Ma'am, we need to talk about your involvement. We found explosives in your car." My blood ran cold. Ben had planted evidence to frame me. I was free, but not cleared, and the battle was far from over. The state police escorted Tommy and me to a secure location, a small motel outside town, while they processed the scene. Ben was in custody, but the officer's accusation about explosives hung over me. I had to clear my name and ensure Tommy received medical care, using the uploaded evidence to prove my innocence. If I couldn't, I might face charges, and Ben could weasel out of his. I risked losing my reputation and freedom, even after all I'd endured. Ben's influence lingered. His connections might still protect him. Tommy was shaken but safe, and I sat with him in the motel room, holding his hand. "He kept me in the basement, Grandma. I thought I'd never see you again," he whispered, tears in his eyes. I promised him justice. A knock came at the door, and a detective entered, a woman named Reyes, who seemed genuine. "We've reviewed your files, Martha. They're compelling. But we need your full statement, she said, her tone respectful. This felt like a turning point. As I recounted everything, I noticed her nodding, taking notes. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. The news reporter had published the story based on my email. Headlines blasted about Ben's crimes, and public outrage was building. Relief washed over me. But then something else happened. Reyes received a call, and her face tightened. Ben's lawyer is claiming you planted the evidence, Martha. They're pushing for your arrest. My hope faltered. Ben was fighting back hard. I handed over the USB drive to Reyes. This has more, including witnesses like Lena. She took it, promising to investigate. After she left, I focused on Tommy, getting him to sleep. But as I watched over him, I saw a car pull into the motel parking lot, a black sedan with tinted windows. It sat there, engine off, for too long. My instincts screamed danger. I peered through the window and recognized the driver, one of Ben's deputies from earlier. He was watching us, waiting. I quietly locked the door and grabbed my rifle, positioning myself by the window. The deputy stepped out, holding a device that looked like a tracker. He attached it to another car nearby, then glanced toward our room. He didn't approach, but his presence was a threat. My phone vibrated with a new message. You think you won? The game's just beginning. It was from Ben's number, but he was in custody. Someone else was involved. Someone higher up. I realized then that Ben had protectors, and we weren't safe yet. I woke Tommy, whispering, "We have to move now." As we gathered our things, a shadow passed by the window, and the door handle jiggled. Someone was trying to get in. The door handle jiggled violently, and I shoved Tommy behind me, rifle aimed at the entrance. We had to escape this motel room immediately before the intruder forced their way in. If we were caught, Ben's accomplices could silence us, and the truth would die with us. I risked our lives with every second we stayed. The pressure from Ben's network was intense. Even from custody, he had people hunting us. I glanced around for an exit. The window was our only way out. As I pushed it open, the door burst inward, and the deputy from outside stood there, gun drawn. "Freeze, Martha!" he shouted. But then he lowered his weapon slightly, his voice dropping. "I'm not here to hurt you. Lena sent me. I'm internal affairs. We've been investigating Ben for months." This sudden shift made me hesitate, but I kept Tommy close. The deputy, named Harris, explained quickly that he'd planted the tracker as a decoy and needed us to come with him to a safe house. My mind raced. Could I trust him? But then he showed me his badge and a photo of Lena, confirming his story. But as we stepped outside, a shot rang out from the parking lot, hitting Harris in the shoulder. He crumpled, and I saw another figure with a rifle, the same man from the mill. We dove behind a car, bullets peppering the metal. Tommy trembled beside me. "We have to run, Grandma," he whispered. I grabbed Harris's keys from his belt, and we scrambled into his car, engine roaring to life. As I sped away, I checked the rearview mirror. The shooter was pursuing us in another vehicle. We were out, but not safe, and now we had a wounded ally in the back seat. I drove through back roads, the night swallowing us whole, with Harris groaning in the back and Tommy clutching my arm. I needed to reach the safe house Harris mentioned, patch him up, and contact Detective Reyes to secure our protection. If we failed, Ben's men would find us, and Harris might not survive. I was responsible for another person's life, and that made everything more critical. Ben's allies were relentless. They had resources and no qualms about killing. Harris directed me to a remote cabin deep in the woods, similar to the one where Tommy was held. The irony wasn't lost on me. As we arrived, I helped Harris inside, using my old first aid knowledge to stem the bleeding. Tommy found a medical kit, his hands steady despite the fear. This felt like a temporary reprieve. Then, Harris's phone buzzed with a message from an encrypted source. Reyes is compromised. Ben's lawyer has ties to her superior. Don't trust anyone. My blood ran cold. The system I relied on was corrupted. I had to rethink everything. In a surprising turn, Harris revealed he had hidden evidence at this cabin, including financial records linking Ben to higher-ups in the state police. We searched and found a locked box under the floorboards. Inside were files naming officials I never suspected. But as we reviewed them, headlights pierced the windows. A car approaching fast. We extinguished the lights, hiding in the dark. The vehicle stopped, and two figures emerged, armed and scanning the area. One spoke into a radio. "They're here. Move in." We were trapped again, with no easy way out. I gripped my rifle, knowing we had to fight or flee, but the woods outside were unfamiliar territory. We crouched in the dark cabin, the armed figures closing in outside. I had to protect Tommy and Harris, using the woods as cover to escape and reach a neutral authority, maybe the FBI. If we were captured, Ben's network would bury the evidence and us. I could lose Tommy forever this time. Ben's men were well armed and coordinated, showing Ben's reach extended far. I whispered to Tommy to stay low and handed him a flashlight as a distraction. Then, one of the figures outside called out, "Martha, we're here to help. Detective Reyes sent us." But Harris shook his head weakly. "Don't believe them. Reyes is compromised." I peered through a crack and recognized one man from the state police earlier. This contradiction forced a quick decision. I decided to create a diversion by throwing a chair through a window on the opposite side. The noise drew their attention, and we slipped out the back into the dense forest. The cold air bit my skin as we ran, Harris leaning on me for support. Tommy tugged my sleeve and said, "Grandma, I remember something. Ben talked about a big boss in the capital. He mentioned the name Thornton when he thought I was unconscious, catching me off guard. That name wasn't in the files. It was new, implying a higher level of corruption." We kept moving, but the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Suddenly, a flashlight beam caught us, and a voice shouted, "Stop, or I'll shoot!" I turned, raising my rifle, but it was too late. A net launched from the trees enveloped us, tangling our limbs. We struggled, but it was useless. The figures surrounded us, and one leaned in, his face grim. "You've caused enough trouble, old woman." He aimed a syringe at Harris, injecting him swiftly. Harris went limp, and I feared he was dead. Then the man turned to me. "You're coming with us, Martha. Ben wants a word." Tommy cried out as they dragged me away, leaving him behind in the net. They hauled me to a black van, shoving me inside with rough hands. Tommy's screams echoed in the distance, tearing at my heart. I had to survive this interrogation and find a way back to Tommy, using any leverage I had to delay them. If I broke, Ben would win, and Tommy would be lost. I couldn't imagine anything worse than my grandson being unsafe and me losing my sanity. Ben's men were brutal. They had no regard for law or life. The van drove for what felt like hours, eventually stopping at a secluded warehouse. Inside, they tied me to a chair in a cold, concrete room. Ben was there, seated across from me, his arm in a sling from the earlier shooting. "Martha, you just couldn't let it go," he said, his voice calm but menacing. He detailed how Thornton, a high-ranking official, protected him in exchange for silence on other crimes. This was his way of pressuring me, showing his power. Then the door burst open, and Lena rushed in with two armed companions, firing warning shots. "Let her go, Ben! It's over! The media has everything!" she yelled. Ben's men hesitated, distracted. In the chaos, I worked free from the ropes, grabbing a piece of broken pipe from the floor. Ben laughed, not fearing Lena, which surprised me. "You're too late. Thornton has people everywhere. The story will be buried by morning." But as he spoke, my phone, which I'd hidden in my pocket, vibrated with a news alert. The reporter had published a follow-up, naming Thornton and causing public uproar. I showed Ben the screen, his confidence cracking. "It's out, Ben. You're finished." He snarled and lunged at me, but Lena's team subdued him. We thought we had him, but then the lights flickered and went out. In the darkness, gunfire erupted, and I felt a searing pain in my side. I collapsed, hearing Tommy's voice calling for me from somewhere nearby. The last thing I saw was a shadowy figure dragging Ben away, and Lena shouting, "We have to move, now!" I woke up in a dimly lit room, my side bandaged and throbbing, with Tommy and Lena watching over me. We were in another safe house, this one provided by a journalist friend. I needed to ensure our safety permanently and see Ben and his network brought to justice, using the public exposure to pressure authorities. If we song Xie Ed, Thornton might still cover things up. I was wounded and weak, risking my health. Ben's allies were scrambling, but they had resources to disappear or retaliate. Lena explained that Harris was alive but in hiding, and the state police were purging corrupt elements thanks to the media storm. This felt like progress, but I knew it wasn't over. Then, my phone rang. It was Detective Reyes, her voice urgent. "Martha, I'm clean now. My superior was arrested, and I have a team ready to extract you. But Thornton is on the run. He might come for you." This forced me to trust her again, despite past doubts. We arranged a meeting point. As we prepared to leave, Tommy handed me a small, folded note he'd kept hidden, and it held a shocking revelation. "Ben gave this to me before they took you," he said. It was a list of names and dates, more victims, including children, with locations of hidden evidence. My hands shook. This was bigger than I imagined. We headed out to meet Reyes, but as we approached the rendezvous, I saw multiple unmarked cars surrounding the area. Something felt off. Reyes stepped out, but her expression was tense, and she didn't make eye contact. Behind her, Thornton emerged from a car, smiling coldly. "You've been a nuisance, Martha," he said, raising a hand. His men moved in, and I realized Reyes had been coerced or turned. We were surrounded, with no escape in sight. Tommy gripped my hand, and I knew this might be our end. Thornton's men closed in, their weapons trained on us, and Reyes avoided my eyes, her betrayal cutting deep. I had to create a diversion to break free and get Tommy to safety, using the chaos to our advantage. If we were taken, Thornton would silence us permanently, and all the evidence would be for nothing. I couldn't let Tommy suffer again. Thornton's power was absolute here. He had Reyes and armed enforcers under his control. I tightened my grip on Tommy's hand, ready to act. Then, a sudden roar of engines filled the air. Multiple vehicles speeding toward us, lights flashing. It was a mix of news vans and federal agents, swarming the area. Reporters shouted questions, and agents identified themselves as FBI, here for Thornton. This interruption forced Thornton's men to hesitate, and I saw my chance. I shoved Tommy toward a gap in the crowd, pulling him into a run. But as we moved, Reyes grabbed my arm, whispering, "I'm sorry, Martha. They have my family." Her confession stunned me. She was coerced, not evil. In that moment, I realized we might have an ally after all. We kept running, but a shot rang out, and Tommy cried out, clutching his leg. He'd been hit. I dragged him behind a car, my heart pounding. The FBI engaged Thornton's men, and in the confusion, I spotted Lena signaling from a nearby alley. We struggled toward her, but Thornton broke free from the agents and lunged at us, his face twisted with rage. He raised a gun, aiming at Tommy. I threw myself in front, but before he could fire, an agent tackled him to the ground. We were safe for now, but Tommy was bleeding, and I didn't know how bad it was. As I knelt to check his wound, I heard Thornton shout, "This isn't over! I have people everywhere!" Then, the agent handcuffing him collapsed, shot by one of Thornton's hidden snipers. The chaos escalated, and I lost sight of Lena. Tommy gasped, "Grandma, I can't feel my leg." The blood was spreading, and I had no medical supplies. We were exposed, with sniper fire pinning us down, and no way to call for help. I applied pressure to Tommy's leg wound with a torn piece of my shirt, the fabric quickly soaking through. He was pale, and his breathing was shallow. I needed to find cover and medical aid immediately, before he bled out or the snipers found us. If I failed, Tommy could die, and I'd lose the only family I had left. Thornton's remaining men were still active, using the chaos to pick off targets. The FBI was distracted, dealing with the firefight. I dragged Tommy behind a dumpster, its metal cool against my back. Then, Lena emerged from a sewer grate nearby, her face smudged with dirt. "This way. I know a route to a clinic," she urged, helping me lift Tommy. This unexpected help gave us a path, but I was wary. We descended into the dark tunnel, the smell of dampness overwhelming. As we moved, Lena explained she had contacts with underground medics who opposed Thornton. But then, she stopped, her voice dropping. "Martha, I have to tell you something. Thornton isn't the top. There's someone else, a politician named Briggs. He's been pulling strings for years." This revelation shifted everything. The corruption went higher than I thought. We reached a hidden room where a medic tended to Tommy, stabilizing him. I felt a glimmer of hope, but then the medic's phone buzzed with a warning. "Briggs knows your location. Move now." We had to leave, but Tommy was too weak to walk. As we prepared to carry him, the door burst open, and Briggs himself stood there, flanked by armed guards. He smiled coldly. "You've been quite the nuisance, Martha, but it ends here." He gestured, and his men advanced. I raised my rifle, but I was outnumbered. Tommy whispered, "Grandma, I'm scared." Briggs laughed. "Don't worry, son. You'll both be taken care of." Then the lights went out, and gunfire erupted from behind us. I couldn't see who was shooting, but in the flashes, I saw Briggs's men falling. Someone was helping us, but I didn't know if they were friend or foe. In the darkness, I shielded Tommy, my rifle ready as the unseen gunfight raged around us. I had to identify who was attacking and use the confusion to escape with Tommy to a more secure location. If we were caught in the crossfire, we could be killed by either side. I risked everything in this blind battle. Briggs's power was evident. He had well-armed guards and no hesitation to kill. The shooting stopped as quickly as it started, and a voice called out, "Martha, it's Harris. I'm with a rogue FBI unit. We're here to extract you." I recognized Harris's voice, but after all the betrayals, I hesitated. A flashlight beam cut through the dark, revealing Harris and others in tactical gear securing the area. Briggs was gone, escaped in the chaos. This turn of events forced me to trust again, but cautiously. Harris explained that they had been tracking Briggs and needed our testimony to bring him down. We moved Tommy to their vehicle, and as we drove, I reviewed the new list of names Tommy had given me. One name stood out, a judge I knew personally, involved in covering up Ben's crimes. This surprising detail made the conspiracy seem even more far-reaching. We arrived at a fortified safe house, where Tommy received proper medical care. I thought we were finally secure, but then Harris received a coded message. His face turned grim. Briggs has activated a cleanup protocol. He's targeting all known associates, including you, Martha. We have to move you again. As he spoke, an alarm blared. The safe house was under attack. We rushed to a backup exit, but as we opened the door, a grenade rolled inside. Harris shoved us back, yelling, "Get down!" The explosion rocked the building, and debris filled the air. When the dust settled, Harris was injured, and the exit was blocked. We were trapped, with attackers closing in from outside. Tommy clung to me, and I knew we had to find another way out fast. The safe house was in ruins, smoke stinging my eyes as I helped Harris to his feet. He was bleeding from a head wound, but conscious. I needed to find an alternate escape route and contact outside help before Briggs's men breached the building. If we didn't, we'd be captured or killed, and the truth would die with us. I couldn't let Tommy down now. Briggs's assault was relentless. He had teams surrounding us. I remembered a ventilation shaft Harris had mentioned earlier and dragged Tommy toward it. We pried it open, and I sent Tommy up first, then helped Harris. As we crawled through the tight space, I heard voices below, Briggs's men searching the rubble. This narrow escape bought us time, but we were vulnerable. Exiting into an alley, we found a car Harris had stashed nearby. We drove toward a remote farm owned by an old friend of mine, someone Briggs wouldn't know. Along the way, Harris revealed that Briggs had ties to international crime rings, using them to eliminate threats. This new information expanded the scope of the danger. At the farm, my friend Sarah welcomed us, her home a haven of simplicity. She helped tend to Harris and Tommy, and for a moment I felt a sliver of peace. But then Sarah's landline rang, a call from Thornton, who had escaped custody. He threatened Sarah, demanding she hand us over or her family would suffer. Sarah paled, hanging up. "I'm sorry, Martha, but I can't risk it," she said, her voice trembling. She was turning us out, forced by fear. We had to leave immediately, but as we gathered our things, I saw headlights approaching the farm, Briggs's men, tracking us somehow. We ran to the barn, but it was empty except for old tools. Harris pointed to a trapdoor in the floor. "It leads to a root cellar. Maybe we can hide there." We descended into the dark, musty space, but as I closed the trapdoor, I heard footsteps above. Briggs's voice echoed, "Find them. They're here somewhere." Then the trapdoor was yanked open, and a flashlight beam blinded me. Briggs stood there smiling. "Got you?" he said, aiming a gun. But before he could fire, a shot came from behind him, and he staggered forward. I looked past him to see Lena, holding a smoking rifle. "I told you I'd have your back," she said, but as she stepped forward, more figures emerged from the shadows, Briggs's backup, and they had her surrounded. Lena stood defiant, but Briggs's men trained their weapons on her, and we were trapped in the cellar. I had to use this standoff to negotiate or fight our way out, protecting Tommy and Lena at all costs. If we surrendered, Briggs would execute us quietly. I couldn't bear the thought of more loss. Briggs, wounded but alive, leaned against the wall, his breath ragged. "You're all coming with me," he snarled. But then Harris, despite his injury, activated a distress beacon on his gear. "Backup is on the way, Briggs. Give it up," he said, his voice weak. This sudden move made Briggs hesitate, but his men held their ground. In the tension, Tommy tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Grandma, I remember something else. Briggs has a safe in his office with proof of everything. Ben mentioned it once. This new piece of information gave us something concrete to aim for, but first we had to make it out alive. The distress signal drew gunfire from outside, FBI units arriving, engaging Briggs's men. In the chaos, I grabbed a pitchfork from the cellar wall and charged at Briggs, knocking him down. Lena and I subdued him, tying him with rope from the barn. The FBI stormed in, securing the area, and we were finally rescued. As they led Briggs away, he glared at me. "You think you've won? My network will still operate without me." His words chilled me. But for now, we were safe. Back at the farmhouse, the FBI debriefed us, and I provided all the evidence, including the list from Tommy. They assured me that Briggs and Thornton would face justice, and Ben was already in custody. Tommy's leg was healing, and he smiled for the first time in weeks. I thought the nightmare was over, but then an agent approached me with a solemn expression. "Martha, we found something in Briggs's records, a hit list with your name on it, and it's still active. Someone else is in charge, and they're coming for you." My relief shattered, and I held Tommy close, knowing the fight wasn't done. The agent added, "We need to relocate you immediately. Pack only what you can carry." As I hurried to gather our things, I saw a shadow move outside the window, a figure watching us, too familiar to ignore. The shadow outside the window moved closer, and I recognized the face. Deputy Miller, one of Ben's loyalists who had vanished after the arrests. He gestured for me to come out, his expression unreadable. I had to protect Tommy and decipher Miller's intentions before the FBI relocated us, using any advantage to stay alive. If I misjudged this, we could walk into a trap, and Tommy would pay the price. The hit list loomed over me, and Miller's presence confirmed the network was still active. I whispered to Tommy to stay hidden and slipped out the back door, my rifle ready. Miller stood in the moonlight, hands raised. "I'm not here to fight, Martha. I have information. Briggs wasn't the top. There's a woman, Elena Rostova, running things from overseas. She's ordered your elimination," he said, his voice low. This sudden shift from enemy to informant forced me to listen, but I kept my distance. He explained that Rostova used Ben and Briggs as pawns and now wanted me dead to tie up loose ends. Then he handed me a flash drive. "This has everything. Names, accounts, locations. Use it." But as I took it, headlights swept across the yard, more cars arriving, unmarked and fast. Miller's eyes widened. "They're here for me too. Run." He bolted into the woods, and I rushed back inside. The FBI agents were mobilizing, but one agent, the one who had warned me earlier, pulled me aside. "Martha, we have a mole in our team. I can't protect you here. You need to go off-grid now." He gave me keys to a safe vehicle and a map to a remote cabin. Tommy and I grabbed our bags and ran to the car, but as I started the engine, I saw Miller being dragged into one of the unmarked cars by armed men. His betrayal of Rostova had cost him. We sped away, but in the rearview mirror, I noticed a drone following us, its red light blinking. We were being tracked, and I didn't know how to lose it. I drove through the night, the drone a persistent shadow in the sky, its red light like a malevolent eye. Tommy slept fitfully beside me, his legs still bandaged. I needed to reach the remote cabin and find a way to disable the drone or throw it off our trail, using the flash drive's data to plan our next move. If Rostova's people caught us, we'd be executed without a trace. I was exhausted, and every mile felt like a gamble with our lives. The pressure from Rostova's network was immense. They had tech and reach beyond anything I'd faced. I pulled over in a dense forest area, remembering my husband's lessons on electronic evasion. I used a foil blanket from our supplies to wrap the car's roof, hoping to confuse the drone's sensors. This makeshift solution seemed to work. The drone hovered uncertainly. But then, my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from an unknown number. Martha, it's Lena. I'm alive and have a team. Meet me at coordinates I'll send. We can take down Rostova together. I hesitated. After all the betrayals, could I trust her? But the drone suddenly veered away and crashed into a tree. Lena's people had jammed it. This intervention gave me a choice. Go to the cabin alone or risk meeting Lena. I decided to check the coordinates, which led to an abandoned airfield. As we approached, I saw Lena waiting with two others, all armed. She smiled weakly. We have to move fast. Rostova has agents everywhere, and they're closing in. But then, one of her companions pulled a gun on her. Sorry, Lena. Rostova pays better, he said. In that moment, I realized Lena had been playing both sides, and now we were all in danger. I raised my rifle, but the man fired, hitting Lena in the shoulder. She collapsed, and the other companion tackled the traitor. In the chaos, I grabbed Tommy and ran toward a hangar, but inside, I found a small plane with its engine running, and Rostova herself stepping out, smiling. Hello, Martha. I've been waiting, she said, her accent smooth and cold. We were cornered, with no way out. Rostova stood before me, impeccably dressed, her gaze calculating. Tommy trembled at my side, and I tightened my grip on my rifle. I had to stall her and find a weakness to escape, using the flash drive as a bargaining chip if needed. If I failed, Rostova would eliminate us and continue her operations unscathed. I couldn't let Tommy see me break. Rostova's confidence was unnerving. She had armed guards and seemed to have anticipated our every move. She gestured to the plane. We're leaving this country, Martha. You and the boy will come with me, as insurance. I shook my head. The evidence is out. You can't win. She laughed. Evidence can be buried. People, however, cannot. Then, Lena stumbled into the hangar, bleeding but determined. Rostova, it's over. I've sent everything to Interpol, she gasped. This betrayal from within Rostova's circle shifted the dynamics. Rostova's smile faded, and she signaled her guards. But as they advanced, the hangar doors burst open, and FBI units swarmed in, led by Harris. Elena Rostova, you're under arrest, he shouted. Rostova's guards opened fire, and a shootout erupted. I pulled Tommy behind a crate, returning fire. In the confusion, I saw Rostova making for the plane. I sprinted after her, tackling her to the ground. We struggled, and she pulled a knife, slashing my arm. The pain was sharp, but I disarmed her, pinning her down. Harris and his team subdued the guards, and Rostova was cuffed. As they led her away, she spat at me. This isn't the end. My organization will find you. Harris assured me they had her network in disarray, but I felt no victory. Back outside, Lena was being treated by medics. She looked at me. I'm sorry, Martha. I was trying to take her down from the inside. I nodded, too tired to hold grudges. But as we prepared to leave, Harris pulled me aside. We found something on Rostova's phone, a message about a backup plan. She has a failsafe. If captured, assets are activated to tie up loose ends. You're still on the list, Martha. My relief vanished, and I looked at Tommy, who was watching the scene with wide eyes. Then, a sniper shot rang out, and Harris fell, blood spreading on his chest. We dove for cover, but the shooter was hidden, and I didn't know where the next shot would come from. We crouched behind the plane's wheels, Harris groaning on the ground as medics rushed to him. The sniper was perched somewhere high, picking off targets. I had to locate and neutralize the shooter to save ourselves and the others, using the hangar's layout to my advantage. If I didn't act, more people would die, and Tommy might not make it. I was wounded and running on adrenaline, but I couldn't give up. Rostova's failsafe was in motion, showing her reach even in custody. I peered through a small gap and spotted a glint on the control tower, the sniper's scope. I whispered to an FBI agent, who provided a smoke grenade. I threw it, creating cover, and we moved Harris to safety. Then, I used the plane's ladder to access the roof, crawling toward the tower. The sniper was focused on the hangar below, and I approached from behind. As I closed in, I recognized him, the same man from the motel, one of Rostova's top enforcers. I tackled him, and we struggled for his rifle. He was stronger, but I used my leverage to throw him off balance. We fought, and I managed to knock him out with the butt of my rifle. Securing him, I found a communication device on him, buzzing with a message. Asset eliminated. Proceed to secondary target. The boy. My blood ran cold. Tommy was still in danger. I rushed back down, but as I entered the hangar, I saw Tommy being held at gunpoint by another operative, a woman I hadn't seen before. She smiled. Rostova sends her regards. She aimed at Tommy, and I raised my rifle, but I was too far. Just then, Lena, despite her injury, lunged at the woman, tackling her to the ground. The gun went off, and Lena fell, motionless. The woman scrambled up, but I fired, hitting her in the shoulder. She dropped her weapon and fled. I ran to Tommy, who was safe but shaken, and checked Lena. She was alive, but unconscious. The FBI secured the area, and the immediate threat was over. As they loaded Lena into an ambulance, I held Tommy close. "It's over, Grandma?" he asked. I wanted to say yes, but Harris's warning echoed in my mind. The agent in charge approached. "Martha, we've dismantled Rostova's network here, but we need to place you in witness protection. It's the only way." I agreed. But as we walked to the car, I noticed a familiar car parked nearby, the same one from the farm. The driver's window rolled down, and Deputy Miller waved, his expression grim. He mouthed, "Not yet," and drove off. I knew then that the battle was far from over, and I had to make a choice: hide or fight on. The FBI drove us to a safe house in a quiet suburban neighborhood where we were given new identities and a chance to start over. Tommy and I settled into a small, cozy home with agents stationed nearby for protection. I focused on helping Tommy heal, both physically and emotionally, spending our days gardening and talking about his future. The flash drive data had been used to arrest numerous accomplices, and the news celebrated the takedown of Rostova's ring. But in the quiet moments, I felt the weight of all we'd lost and endured. I decided to use my skills for good, volunteering to teach self-defense to local seniors, and Tommy started school, making new friends. One evening, as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset, Tommy turned to me. "Grandma, are we safe now?" I hugged him tightly. "As safe as we can be, honey. We have each other." I knew that the world wasn't perfect, and shadows from the past might linger, but we had faced the worst and survived. I found peace in the simple routines: baking cookies, reading stories, and watching Tommy laugh again. The revenge I sought had turned into a fight for justice, and though it cost us dearly, it brought us closer. I often thought of my husband, wishing he could see how his lessons had saved us. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about protecting what mattered most. Tommy and I built a new life, one where we could remember the past without being consumed by it. The quiet resolution felt earned, And as the years passed, the nightmares faded, replaced by hope and the warmth of family. We never forgot, but we learned to live again, and that was enough.